Hello there. I'm currently in a quarantine centre in the northwest of England after an exhausting journey from the epicenter of the coronavirus in Wuhan, China. Here I will detail my journey with pictures and videos I took along the way. I first heard about the coronavirus outbreak near the end of December, but due to media suppression, it wasn't seen as such a big deal. When the Chinese government put a lockdown on the city of Wuhan on the 23rd of January, things escalated quickly. We couldn't leave our apartments unless it was an emergency or to get food and supplies. If we were to go outside, we had to wear face masks and gloves. On social media, rumors were spreading about evacuation flights out of the city. First, America, France, Japan, and a few other nations were organizing flights for their citizens to exit Wuhan. It wasn't until the 28th of January that news of an evacuation for British citizens was starting to be arranged. I called the crisis hotline only to be told that they wouldn't be able to fly my wife and 3-month-old baby as they were Chinese citizens. Of course, I wasn't going to leave without them. I had given up hope and came to grips that we would be held up in our apartment for the foreseeable future. It was now the 30th of January. A flight had been organised for 5 a.m. the next day, and British citizens were getting calls throughout the day to let them know the details. They had to meet at a checkpoint in front of the airport at 11 p.m. I was following the social media groups as there were other people in similar situations to me. I made another call around 8 p.m. to see if Chinese citizens were being accepted, but was told that they weren't, and they would let me know if that changes. It was now midnight, but I still couldn't sleep and kept following the social media groups. The checkpoint was now extended to 1 a.m. My wife urged me to call one more time, and if nothing changed, we can relax and go to sleep. I called at 12:40, and something had changed. All British citizens and their dependents were now allowed on the flight. I gave them my wife and son's details, and also the fact we still didn't have a passport for my son, only a Chinese birth certificate. They said it should be fine and just get to the airport. Luckily, they extended the checkpoint time to 3 a.m. Although I was happy, we then had to pack essentials in a hurry as well as prepare our baby for travel. The drive to the airport was scary. The usually busy streets of Wuhan were empty. I was worried some roads may be blocked or closed. Luckily, they weren't, and we made it to the checkpoint at 2 a.m. There, we met with the Foreign and Commonwealth Office representatives. I let them know about the situation with our son's lack of passport, but gave him the documents we had. First, we needed all our paperwork checked by the Chinese officials. FCO official drafted an emergency passport for our son, and then we waited with a group of around 100 for our boarding passes. After a lengthy process, we started to make our way through security. Due to having a baby, we were near the back of the group. When we got to passport control, after seeing the emergency passport, the Chinese official told us to wait. As the rest of the group passed through, it was now only our family and another family and 2 FCO officials. The Chinese officer had never seen an emergency passport before and didn't know if it could be used, but he said he will contact his boss. The FCO told us that the plane would need to leave soon, and if time ran out, they would have to go through and we would have to make our way back into Wuhan. I couldn't believe it. We got this far and were about to fall at the final hurdle. Thankfully, the FCO convinced the Chinese officials that it was a legal document and recognized internationally, and we were eventually allowed through. As we got on the plane, all passengers were seated as far from each other as possible to decrease the chance of infected people spreading the virus. Nurses and doctors were on board, which eased our nerves. I wish to thank these brave doctors, as well as all the staff on this WAMOS flight, for risking their lives to help us be evacuated from Wuhan. The 11-hour flight was a mix of relief and pure adrenaline. We were worried about our son flying at such a young age, but he was a champ and slept for most of the journey. The FCO officers continued to chat with all passengers to help put their minds at ease, which certainly helped a lot. We arrived at the Air Force Base in Brize Norton in the south of England at 1:30. A journalist on the flight asked me my thoughts, and I said, I thought I would be more excited, but I just feel tired. I wish I used that time to thank the FCO and flight staff, but due to stress and exhaustion, that's all I could say. We were then moved on to coaches, where we were transported to a quarantine centre in the northwest of England, and where I am now. Leaving the airbase, we were met by a bunch of photographers trying to get shots of us inside of the vehicles. It was then I realized that we would be part of news headlines for the next couple of weeks. Other passengers on the coach were giving phone interviews for what seemed like most of the journey, and I just hoped they were paid well after our long and arduous evacuation. I thought it was ridiculous that the coach drivers weren't offered to wear facial masks for the journey. We made it to the quarantine centre around 7:30 to welcoming cheers and were quickly processed and given an apartment which will be our homes for the next 2 weeks. So here's where I'm going to end this video, but I'm going to make a few more while I'm in quarantine and when I leave in a couple of weeks. So subscribe if you are interested in my thoughts on the whole process, and if you have any questions, comment down below. I do want to say one more big thank you to the FCO and the flight staff for the evacuation, and the doctors and nurses here at the quarantine centre for making us all feel welcome and comfortable. Thanks for watching.